Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of I Am I. My name is Joshua Ansley, as you well know. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you're like, who the fuck is this guy? I don't know who the hell he is. And he's got a fuckload of hair. What is up with that? Yeah. Okay. So, happy 4th, right? It's all about freedom. I want to talk a little bit about freedom. And there's a very practical aspect of this freedom in this outer world that, many people from many places have fought and died for their freedom. And what an important thing that is, freedom, right? It's incredibly important. And I want to make sure that that is obviously honored in when I'm speaking about freedom here today. And we can't take that for granted. We often do. I think everybody does. The privilege that we have that has been afforded us, because of the blood on other people's hands, and the blood that has been shed and the lives that have been sacrificed for our freedom. So that's really all very powerful. But I'm going to talk about a different kind of freedom, liberation. I'm going to talk about moksha, right? It's one of the four main, I got the number right this time. It's one of the four main pursuits of Hindu life, dharma, kama, artha, and moksha, and this liberation. And really, some of them it's interesting because we pursue, in the spiritual world, we talk about moksha and liberty and freedom, right? And liberation, the spiritual liberation. And then people start talking about kama and artha and pursuing wealth or desire, and it's like, wait, it's kind of confusing. And if you pursue all of them together and it's almost like a system of checks and balances, then that's where a really good life can really come from, right? So basically the main foundation here is that the freedom, what we're talking about is freedom from our own minds. Really, it's freedom from our limiting beliefs, freedom from the way we think it's supposed to be, freedom from other people's thoughts and behaviors, freedom from our own thoughts and attitudes and behaviors. I mean, that is where real freedom comes from, right? And really, it comes from an inner inquiry. And that's what the yogic practice is, and that's what like a real spiritual practice is understanding ourselves in a better, more fundamental level. So asking the questions, sitting into those uncomfortable places to really sift through it. And really what it is liberation from the mind. As I say, the mind is a beautiful place to visit, but I would not want to live there, right? And it is chaos. And it is finite, and we think a lot of times, I meet a lot of people, myself included, that wants to justify it or understand it or explain it, in this scientific way, and that is very powerful, and it is possible, but it is outside of the realm of our understanding the way our limited minds can understand it. Even the greatest possible minds, Einstein and Tesla were like, there is something else. Right? And it is outside of our minds. And that's actually where inspiration comes from. It is coming from outside of our limited mindset, right? It comes down into the mind. And the freedom comes from, again, I talk about that identity, the identity situation of that I am not this body, I am not this mind. Right? And it sounds all crazy and mystical, and it kind of is until you start really living those philosophies, not just understanding it in one single moment, but understanding and living the concepts of freedom from the mind. My teacher used to say, I am not cold, the body is cold. Right? The cold, the sensations belong to the body. They do not belong to me. The desires belong to the mind. So we have to understand from a deeper sense of self and understanding of whether or not those desires are something that are going to be beneficial to be fulfilled. Because the mind is a trap. And it doesn't have anything to do with how intelligent you are. Because our functioning in this world doesn't have to do with how intelligent or how much knowledge we have about things. Right? That is completely different. So some of the most intelligent, incredible people cannot manage their own lives and don't know how to do it from a deeper level of understanding. And that's okay. It's only the ego or this, these layers of our personality that would make us feel stupid, that we wouldn't have to ask for help to get ourselves out of our own chaos. And for some of us, it is absolute chaos. Some of us, it is an absolute prison. And then for some of us, we just don't actually even understand and see that there's a deeper, better way. I actually think that, okay, my arm is going to fall off. I lost some of my equipment to hold my, oh, there we go. So I actually believe that, you know, I always talk about stepping into our discomfort, right? And stepping into the difficulty, and that the pain is a place for growth. That's just how it is. And sometimes I'm in it and I'm like, no, I can't believe I say those things. I'm absolutely wrong. But it's absolutely true. It is absolutely true. And for some of us that have hit this really, really deep space of pain and trouble and tumult in our lives, that is actually the biggest opportunity, that we are much more blessed than the other people that are living an okay life and maybe even a really nice life. But if we experience this level of discomfort and cause ourselves, or it causes us to work into an area of self-inquiry, right? And we work ourselves out of the maze, we get out of the chaos, and we find true liberation. And that's why I talk about really getting out of the liberation from other people's thoughts and opinions about ourselves. That is a fucking hard one, because we don't even realize how much we're defining ourselves, or how much we limit the things that we're going to do in our lives based on our thoughts about other people's thoughts and opinions. So it really does come down to our thoughts, right? So it's freeing ourselves from our expectations of other people. I mean, if we see that, how many possibilities would open up in our lives if we stepped into the discomfort, if we had those uncomfortable conversations with our loved ones, if we had those uncomfortable conversations with our bosses, if we weren't with our relationships resorting to manipulation, which we don't even know that we are. I'm telling you, we just don't even have the awareness, because we're not looking inward to see the many layers of our personality and how it works. So we seek comfort, and we seek it in the outside world, or we want to get something, and we use some form of subtle manipulation. So subtle, and it's conditioned by us. It's freedom from our conditioning, because it's our conditioning that keeps us in a space that we don't even see it, because we have been conditioned to understand how to work that way since we were fucking tiny little people on this planet. It's how we learned how to survive in this planet. So the real freedom comes from the freedom from our own limiting beliefs, whatever they are. And we don't know until we start digging down in to see what they are. What are your beliefs about money? What are your beliefs about love? You can write this shit down. It's real simple. It seems so simple. It seems almost too easy. But do we do it? No, because we don't even know what to write or what we really feel. Or I don't know, it's kind of, love is confusing. It's like, no, start to write down what you think love is. What is our relationship to money? What is our relationship to work? What is our relationship to ourselves? What is our relationship to a God or a higher power? What is our relationship to business? What is our relationship to marketing? What is our relationship to promotion? Whatever it is, if there's a weak area in our lives, can we step into that space and find the freedom, right? Find that liberation by stepping into it. See, a lot of times we don't realize that we're actually being imprisoned by these things. So we want to avoid them. But the way to get out of the prison of these things is to step right into them, where they no longer have any power over us. Our emotions can completely rule us and keep us trapped in a small little prison because we don't want to feel them. When we acknowledge them, when we see self-pity, when we see rage, when we see denial and delusion, which is a tough one to see because we're in denial and delusion, when we see all that, we can actually then open up out of it. When we allow ourselves to step into it. And that, my friends, is where we find liberation. That's where we find freedom. It's all here. Everything that we see, hear, taste, touch, and smell has created this little version of reality that we live in. And I'm telling you, when you get these concepts of what the hell I'm talking about, the world will blow open for you. Anything is possible. It's all about perspective. It's all the perspective from which we're approaching it. And it really comes down to, solution-based. When we start to see that there is a solution, when we stop living in the fact that it's not how we wanted it, It's like sometimes the no is because it's opening us up into a better yes. It's a perspective to see that anytime there's something that gets in our way, it's like not just to accept it, but to see, no, it's pushing you into a better direction. If you allow yourself to see that, if you get out of these ideas that you have of how it was supposed to be, if you let yourself find freedom from your own limiting belief systems about everything, about relationships. And again, it all comes from self-inquiry. You know, it's like you can be in prison. You could be in a literal prison in this world and find freedom. Right? We don't let this external world define who we are as human beings. And that's what I'm talking about, is when you go into this inner inquiry of self, the outer world actually unfolds in a way that you could never imagine. We keep seeking for answers in the outer world, when the answer is to work inward, see what's happening in here, get to know ourselves better, unfold the layers, and it actually just starts to happen naturally in this outer world. Or sometimes it's also very uncomfortable, as it just happens, like unfolds naturally. But the discomfort that we step into then allows everything to unfold naturally. And that is where we find freedom from this fucking maze that I've been walking around in for the last hour and don't know where I am. That's bullshit. It's like not barely a maze, but anyway, I'm full of shit. You're full of shit. We're all full of shit. Let's find freedom together. In Lakesha Lakin, I am you. You are me. Namaste. What? Too much?